In this lesson, we're going to learn how to create a jukebox using loaded external SWF files. In other words, this is a technique to use to load external files, and it can be used in many situations, and it is a best practice to have a lot of files that load into basically one main host file. So I'm going to show you this running right now. I've got a finished version, and then we'll look at how it's built, and then we'll go ahead and build one. I'm just going to do a test movie right now. And you can see here we've got 4 animated buttons, and I've extended the hit zone on the buttons to go underneath the text as well. So 4 animated buttons, and as soon as I click one of these buttons, a green progress bar will appear at the bottom with the name of the song. So let's start with the Sadies. I do have a stop button as well. So you can see I can click any one of these.
1, 2, 3, my baby don't care.
And I can click stop. So when I click another one out, it obviously kicks the previous song out, and then it takes over and plays immediately. Okay, so I'm going to show you how this is built. As I was saying earlier, it's basically one main host file, if you will, and then a series of support files that are things that are actually being loaded in. So what we are loading in here is the file that contains the audio clip, the song, and the graphic that describes the song, and the animation of the progress bar that lets us know how much of the song has played. So I basically had to start with 2 master files. I started with one because the point here is that when we import a file, it's best to have the file size, the stage size, the exact same in both, because they do register to the 00 coordinate in the upper left corner. So I start with one master file, if you will, then I duplicate it, as you will see shortly, and then I retain only the graphics for the song and the song file itself for each song file. I'll actually go out to my Finder right now and just show you the setup, because I do have it finished. So I have a series of author files here. Here's my main file, and then one for each song. Actually, this is my main file here. This is my prototype for my songs. So then I actually created a separate file for each song and ultimately output them as SWF movie files. Okay, so this again, let me find it here, is my main file that launches, and when I click one of the buttons, it imports one of these song files, and when I click another button, it actually kicks out the current song and brings in the new song. Okay, so let's look at our file here. I'm on my main timeline. I've got 3 layers, one for my action script, one for my buttons, and one for the text. Now if I look at my buttons, I've got 4 that are similar for the songs and a different one for the stop. So if I highlight one of these buttons, I can just double click it here. It is an animated button, and on the overstate I do have a movie clip that I'll double click here that has an animation using a shape tween. And it basically is that border, that white ring, getting a little bit bigger and fading out. And then it stops. There's a stop command right there. So that's a movie clip inside of a button on my Scene 1 timeline. And if I go to my library, I'll just show you there's just the one button. And I use it repeatedly. I create instances of it. And then I just put a unique text title over top on the text layer. Now basically this is all code. As you can see, it's all in one frame. So I'm going to pop open the code window, my ActionScript panel. I'll highlight the frame that has the actions in it, and we'll take a look at that. Okay, here we are. Now I do have code for the buttons, as you can see. Each button has an instance name that I've attached to it. So I've named them according to the band name with an underscore button. It makes it very easy for me to figure out what's what in my code view. So there's the button for the Sadies. Using the code snippets, I generated an add event listener for the mouse event click. And then inside of my function, to start with, if any sound was playing, I stopped it. So it's soundmixer.stopAll. And then next I loaded the song. So let me actually refer to this variable up at the top, and then I'll come back to how it's applied in the function. First of all, I declared a variable, called it loader, and the loader is actually a variable type. So I used the colon loader equals, and this is something called a class. So we're actually creating a new class. So I said equals new loader. This next line, called add child, is another way of saying put on the stage. So it actually takes whatever is in loader and puts it on the stage. Now what goes on the stage is designated inside of my function. So here's my variable called loader, and then we have a load command. Dot load new URL request, and we simply put in the URL address, and it is relative. So in this case, I keep the file in the same folder as my host file. And again, I've named them according to the band name, so I put that in quote marks. And that's the file name, thesadies.swf. So the thesadies.swf is contained inside of the variable loader. And as soon as I click that button, that's what gets loaded. Now, because these files have long streaming audio, they would continue to play even if I loaded another loader. So this is why I have this preemptive stop all sound command. So it will stop any current sound and then load the new one and play the new one, including its sound. Okay, so I've got that happening for all 4 buttons here. Now when you type in this code, and I'll do it in the demo, it auto-generates this code up top here. So just leave that alone. And finally, my stop button is down here. And the commands inside of the function, again, are stop all sound. And just to keep it clean, I actually unload the loader. And it's loader.unload empty brackets. So I stop all the sound. And then for memory's sake, to clear the memory, to save the memory, I unload whatever is currently in the loader. And this bit of code here is very fundamental in taking external files and bringing them into a main host file. It's one of the best practices. It's a good way to do memory management and to do things in a very modular fashion when we're building titles using Flash. So I'm just going to close this window now, and we'll take another quick look at this. So control, test movie, test. Okay, so if I click on one of these buttons, it will play the song requested. Then I hit stop, and it kills the sound and takes whatever is in the loader and deletes it. Now let's look at the preparation of that second file, which is the file to be loaded. So I'm going to open one of those files right now. We'll take, let's say we'll take Eminem here, eminem.fla. I'll actually open another one as well to describe the in-between step. First thing I'll do is I'll just resize this to fit in window. And as I was saying, I had another interim file called song AS3. I'm just going to open that right now. and I'll resize that. The reason I'm popping this one is I want to explain that the way I got to that file that has the song is I started with my original jukebox file, as you can see here. The reason for that is so that I can get visual registration of my elements on the stage. I wanted to make sure that it was exactly positioned according to its relative distance from the other objects that will appear with it in the original file. Then once I established where the bar goes, where the text goes, I actually grabbed everything else and deleted it. And then I ended up duplicating that file each time for each song and replacing the song and either shrinking or reducing the animation. So let me explain how this bar was done. We've already done this in a previous lesson, so I'm not going to actually demo it, I'm just going to explain it. I've got one layer for my song, so obviously in my library I've imported some songs. They're MP3 files. I've got one layer for my text, which is the title of the song and the title of the artist. One layer for my animated green bar, and we're just going to use a shape tween for that. One separate layer for the black border, and one layer for my actions. So to place the song in, I highlighted the first frame of my song layer, and in my properties, if you don't remember, you have a sound pull-down menu for songs, and I just established which song would be inside of that. Then of course we had to go down to the track and keep selecting frames, hitting F5 until we found the end of the song. In other words, we're adding frames until we find the end of the song, and when you see that sound wave stop, that's the end of the song. So the idea was to go to the end of the song. If I put my playhead here, you can see the green bar is practically full because I animated a keyframe on the last frame for the green bar with it completely full, and the first frame it is just a little sliver on the left hand side, and using a shape tween with this raw shape it just animates when it moves across, and magically, because its keyframe is lined up with the end of the song, just call it back here, magically again, because this keyframe is lined up with the end of the song, it's going to finish on time every time, and it will very accurately let you know where you are in the song. If it's half done, this will be at the halfway mark. That border is just static, and my only action script here I believe is a stop command, and let me just double check that. There we go. So I just stop it at the end so that it does not loop. If you want it to loop, just don't put a stop command at the end. But I've done so in this case. I think it's a better user interface to have the song stop when it's completed, because they can always click it again if they desire to do so. Okay, so then I took each one of these files and I simply exported it as a movie in the same folder as my host file. Okay, so this is the movie that gets pulled in to the main movie right here. And again, as I was describing, with the loader class, we actually populate the loader with the external file. And I'll just call up that code quickly again so you can have a look at it. So we declare a variable called loader, make it a loader type. We make it a new class, which is a loader, a built-in class in Flash. Then to put it on the stage, we use the add child command. And then inside of the functions, we call up that variable and we load our external file into it, which is a .load command, brackets, new URL request, brackets, file name, in between quote marks. And that is how we import external files using Flash, and in this case we created a jukebox with 4 songs. And I want you to build one like this today.